Welcome to this session on the resources and tools available in Service Studio. Service Studio has a number of different tools and organizes its resources into different layers. All of this information is available and accessed through the menu bar at the top. Let's start by looking at each of the layers that are available that contain different types of elements. So if we get started, we can look at the process layer. The process layer can be accessed via the keyboard shortcut Control-1. Inside of processes, we have two major groups of things, the processes and timers. Processes include business processes, human and automated tasks, which would also have decisions, events, and wait times. The second type of element is the timer, which is a scheduled action that can occur at a specific time and can be rescheduled to occur daily, weekly, and at other types of intervals. These timers can be given different priorities so that if multiple have to run at the same time, some can be given more importance, and they can also have timeouts so they wouldn't continue running forever. So the process layer gives us a lot of information about logic and tasks that can occur at the highest level. The second layer is the user interface layer. The user interface focuses on the different components that will make up the user interface. There are things called user interface flows, which are actually groups of screens. And if we name a group of screens, like the main flow, then that main flow would have individual screens inside of it. Besides the flows of the different screens, the interface layer will also have different types of images and themes. Themes are the way that OutSystems describes the look and feel for how our application will be rendered. And below that, we have scripts, which may be any JavaScript resources that may be required for any of these other elements. When we move to the third layer, we have the logic of the application. In this case, it's the individual logic that will run on the server or on the client. Client actions run on mobile devices, and server actions will actually run on the server. We also have logic that is integrated between systems, and that includes things like web services, RESTful services, and connectors to enterprise systems like SAP. Because we have logic in all of these sections, we also want to be able to secure and limit who has access to those types of logic and components. So we need to define roles to know exactly which users can be placed in different roles and what those roles will have access to. And then as any of this logic is running, if any exceptions need to be handled or thrown, we can go ahead and have a whole set of exceptions in the logic layer as well. Finally, the fourth layer is the data layer. Inside the data layer, we can define the different entities that would be available in the database or locally on the device, which we call local storage. If you wish to visually represent these and be able to see them, there are entity diagrams that can be created, and we can name those and be able to get a view of the entities that have been created. Besides entities that will be stored on some device or server, there are also structures, which are just in-memory representations of data. There are site properties, which are cross-application data, and then there are just generic resources, which are any other type of data that doesn't fall into these other categories. So these four layers give us ways of organizing the elements that exist inside of our workspace, and that way we can sort of organize them easily so we can jump to the types of elements that we need quickly and easily. Besides the elements, there's also a search bar. So in the top right, we're able to activate the search bar and then type in any type of search that we want. The search will look across all the different types of elements and tell us which types of elements are available that might have the search terms that are there. So if we searched on message, it would try to find any messages or message-related elements inside of our module inside of the overall community, and any of the ones that it found, it would give us access to. If we double click on anything in the search, it will immediately jump to that element so we can get to that element in the editor more quickly. To get to search, besides clicking in the upper right corner on the magnifying glass, we also have the keyboard shortcut of Control F. So here you can see that we've covered everything on the right-hand side. We've talked about the search, we've talked about the different layers, and what we can see here is that as we move toward the middle, there's the one-click publish button, which we'll talk about more in the next session. On the left-hand side of the menu bar, we have the typical menus that you would expect, and then there's a toolbar. That toolbar has a number of the tools that we referred to earlier. So here we can have a back and forward set of arrows. These arrows jump back and forth in between the open editors. So if we had been working on a piece of data in one of the aggregate editors, and then we opened up a user interface element, and the user interface element's editor was open at the moment, by clicking the back button, we would immediately jump to the data editor. So this can be a quick and easy way of jumping back and forth between pieces of or elements that we're working on without having to go up and click the different layers and select the element again. So this is very handy and is a great accelerator to help us get work done faster. Module management allows us to be able to see the Service Center view of the modules in our server. Manage dependencies looks like a plugin that allows us to make sure that any of the components that we're using in our current module, we understand what those dependencies and plugins are. We also have the compare and merge so that we can look at different versions of our code and compare and merge when that is necessary. And then we have the curly back and forth arrows, which are the typical undo, redo of whatever the last action that we took was, which is different than just moving back and forth in between the editors. The undo, redo actually undoes the work and the last piece of work that was done. So we covered how to access and think about the different resources and tools in Service Studio. Thanks for listening and have a great day.